So Khurram, there's been a lot of conversation here at ConnectX about unlicensed spectrum in general. What came up in the panel that you and I were on together was the work that's going on within 3GPP around NRU, so applying the new radio specification to unlicensed bands, in this case 5 and 6 gigahertz. But that's a study item, so it might make it into release 16, but either way, it's going to take some time. What can we do today to kind of address that same set of needs that doesn't require us to wait for the standardization and the technological developments to come into place?
Yeah, that's very interesting. At the panel, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that there's work effort happening on providing a very reliable, high-performance connectivity for fixed point-to-point, point-to-multi-point for industrial IoT use cases using the 5G NR spec, but use it for unlicensed. And I think the reality is with 60 gig, we have it today. I mean, with Kwikbit, with this 60 gig solution that we've now deployed it in around 10 to 15 POCs around the country, and we're hopefully going to be global as well. We think that we have a solution that actually matches that, and I think as that study item goes forward, I think 60 gig will be part of the discussion, but we welcome the fact that there's going to be other bands, mid-band as well, there's a need for that, but with the quality reliability we've seen with our deployments, I'm pretty positive that we can actually jumpstart that activity for industrial IoT.
Yeah, you mentioned mid-band. The first day of the conference here was all about CBRS, and there was a lot of discussion around in-building deployments, kind of venue-specific. So, the assumption here is you're going to have some small cells strategically placed around the venue. Then the owner or a carrier perhaps is going to get access to that shared spectrum and provide a pretty bespoke solution. But all of these small cells, they need the same things, whether they're inside or outside. They need power and they need backhaul. And I think 60 gigahertz is this is an excellent candidate for providing that backhaul, isn't it?
Absolutely, and one of the big highlights of the show for us was we got a lot of partners as well as other system integrators coming to talk to us about CBRS and 5G indoor small cells. And I think we think that that's a perfect complement to the work we're doing with our indoor distribution network. We're focusing initially on IoT gateways and sensors and video surveillance, but I think, and Wi-Fi access points, but I think 5G small cells and CBRS small cells are also a perfect match for it. And actually, I think it also goes to the network on demand concept as well. I hear a lot about with CBRS, disaster recovery, events, special situations, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So we're excited to partner with some of these guys, and we're actually going to do a couple more POCs here with some of those. But I think that's another validation that what we're building is unique, but value-based. It's not something that's going to be, a commodity solution. I think this is going to be a lot of value for these end customers because, to your point, getting that backhaul is really a critical piece of that infrastructure, and then also getting it low cost, but also, rapidly deployable. I think that's a key factor that we provide, whereas other solutions, traditional, they've been wireless backhaul solution, but they're either bulky, complex, expensive, difficult to install. This is simple, easy, fast to deploy.
Yeah, you raise a great point. A lot of these enterprises that need this in-building connectivity, they need it yesterday. And I mean, that's Kwikbit, gigabit quickly, right?
Absolutely. That's all we're about. We're about fast bits and fast deployment. Yep, absolutely.
And then, 60 gigahertz, a fascinating band to me. A lot of development done around Y-gig.
Yes.
It's debatable how big a hit that was, but as we start to extend the conversation around cellular at 60 gigahertz, you and I just sat through a really interesting keynote presentation from Facebook, and they've done some interesting development work around their Terragraph solution. But help me kind of contextualize what they're doing and how that speaks to what Kwikbit is doing around 60 gigahertz.
That's great. I think it's an excellent validation of 60 gigahertz. I think, as you said, the Y-gig standard was the prime value for 60 gigahertz a couple of years ago, and my previous company, Cybeam, was the pioneer of 60 gig, so we kind of built it for more the consumer market per se, but the value of this is the chips and the technology is available, and now we're looking at more industrial and infrastructure opportunities, and I think Facebook's on the same path. Actually, we're going to be partnering with Facebook as well as we look at the evolution of our roadmap, but the value we have today is we have product today available with 11AD based, Y-gig based solution, and as 11AY comes in, we're going to be migrating to that solution as well. The good thing about Facebook is also that they're looking at more the outdoor opportunities where it's primarily rural connectivity, or if it's urban core where there's lack of infrastructure, and also enabling new use cases, smart cities, smart infrastructure. So I think it's a pretty exciting time, and to find an outlier in the industry, in the wireless infrastructure industry, to come in, I think that's a good thing for the industry. It kind of gave another vantage point of how networks of the future will be built. So I think it's pretty exciting, and I think it was a really good keynote. I enjoyed it. So.
Yeah, and this used to be the wireless infrastructure show, and it was very tower focused.
Yes.
Now they've changed it to ConnectX, connecting everything, and I think that's really been demonstrated through the variability that we've seen in the presentations here. We've said everything from towers to small cells to edge compute and the whole gamut. So what's kind of your key takeaway as you've been here attending these sessions and engaging with customers and potential customers? What stands out to you?
You know, one of the things that even in our panel what stood out was I think people believe in the use cases, people believe in the value of the use cases, and they find that these are really, going to have a big impact in the market. I think what people are struggling is, what's the real cost or total cost of ownership to deploy these things, and how do you scale up? And I think that's where we need disruptive solutions that are low cost and high performance. And to me, this is where it separates the men from the boys, right? So in some ways, we believe that we've actually focused on a disruptive, low-cost infrastructure that's fast to deploy. And I think that's where I feel like with all of these things, we're talking about 10-year cycles. And I think the evolution of bandwidth and demands on bandwidth and other things is not in a 10-year, it's happening every year more and more. So I think one takeaway is we need to do more to innovate faster and faster deploy. And if you're not, then you're obsolete pretty fast. So I think a lot of the technology we see here, unless they get deployed in the next 2 to 3 years, they're going to be gone because the demands will be so much higher. So I think that's an exciting thing for the industry, because normally we're in the 10-year cycles of everything. We're already haven't been deployed 5G, but we're talking about 5G plus in some ways, right? I mean, what can we do to actually, that's why the unlicensed discussion is happening, because spectrum is a short issue, or new applications are demanding other use cases with indoor as well. In the old days, it was always like, well, let's do outdoor, and then indoor will be an afterthought. I think indoor is being thought of at the same time as the outdoor, which is a good thing, right? So.
Yeah, and you raised an interesting point there, and we were discussing this a little earlier, but there's not a silver bullet here for 5G. The level of densification that's going to be required both outdoor and indoor, along with the spectrum that's going to be required, it really needs to be everything all at once, and anything that can be done on the OEM side to take cost out of that equipment is just going to get this built faster.
Yep. So absolutely, so I think cost is key. But I think also the ability to deploy fast and also to provide these private networks that we talk about, I think it's a huge opportunity to actually enable that. So I believe in this network of networks kind of concept, and I think that as we roll out and as CBRS rolls out hopefully, and as 5G, both licensed and unlicensed, you're going to see a more heterogeneous network, and you're going to see more value-based application than just the traditional cell phone model.
Well, it's always great catching up with you. Thanks for taking
the
time to share your perspective.
Yeah, great talking to you too. Take care. Thanks.